What's up, New Hope family? Welcome to the Grow Podcast. My name is David. With me, as always, is Pastor Leo. We are here to help you take a next step in your relationship with Jesus. We're so glad you're here. Hello and welcome to episode 122 of the Grow Podcast. New Hope family, I'm glad that you're here with us. As recently, I think is what I said. In fact, someone even in the comments on episode 120 used that bit, with me as recently.
Right.
Pastor Leo. Hello, Pastor Leo. Shout out to whoever that was. I believe it was a PH person.
Yeah.
But I can't remember who it was.
Me too.
But it made me laugh when I saw it. When I first read it, I had forgotten, because sometimes I say so much nonsense on here before we start that I don't remember the things that I say. I was like, as always, as recently. Oh, I get it now. So I appreciated that. But anyway, with me as recently, Pastor Leo.
Kumusta, everyone? Recently.
On that same, we're recording this before 121 goes live. So currently,
Yes.
the most recent episode that that all of you have been able to listen to as we record this is 120. And we've gotten a lot of awesome feedback, a lot of comments. We really appreciate that. I would also love for you to go in and reply to other people's comments as well. Like if you read somebody's comment and you're like, hey, that was really helpful. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Or just thank you for sharing.
Right.
Or hi, Pastor Leo, can I have your cool jacket? Things like that. In fact, when we're done recording, I might not even wait. I'm going to go do it right now. I'm going to go on to episode 120 on my phone. I'm going to turn the volume down so that when the podcast starts playing, they don't hear it.
You got to wait until this one airs, and then
Then post it on this one?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll come back to this one.
Yeah.
I might start doing that on every single podcast. I want all of you to continue to, post meaningful, helpful things. Mm-hmm. I am going to jump in the comments and just ask Leo for his jacket. I think that's what everybody's looking for. Oh, can I not reply? I can't reply to yours. I just have to leave it as its own comment.
Oh.
Pastor Leo, can I have your cool jacket from episode 122? So really, I just posted that comment from the future.
Right.
This is getting really meta this morning. Mm-hmm. Man, yeah. I don't want the jacket you have on in this one. I'm not interested in that one.
Reply, sure thing, Marty McFly.
Yeah, that'll be great. I just saw that I was wearing my twins jacket in our last one, and now it made me sad because my twins are all done.
Yes.
All done. I do... all of that to say, you have a really sweet Philippines jacket on today.
Thank you.
It makes me wish the World Cup was happening right now. You look very patriotic.
Thank you so
for
much.
The land of the Philippines.
This was a gift from one of the PH members. So thank you so much.
I'm a size 2X tall.
Mm-hmm.
In case everyone
there we
wondering.
Go. So.
And I'm from the land of Australia.
There.
Although our flag doesn't work quite as easily.
Right.
There's a little more going on in ours. You have the Union Jack.
Yep, you have the
in
Union
the corner,
Jack in the
and
corner.
then you have the Southern Cross constellation. It's just a little more complicated. That just looks like you're draped in a Filipino flag. It's pretty sweet though. Makes me want to go play tennis. Much. It looks like a tennis jacket.
That is so true.
Yeah.
That is so true.
In Tagalog, how do you say the nation that you are from?
Pilipinas.
Say it again.
Pilipinas.
Pilipinas?
Mm-hmm.
Nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Do you not have... So there's no F sound. So we just added that. We were like,
right.
It's cool that you say it that way.
That's actually... We have what we call the P and F syndrome because everything F is a P for us. So...
Hold on. Walk me through that again.
Everything F in English, if we say it with a Tagalog accent, becomes a P.
Becomes a P. Interesting. So food is pood.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That doesn't sound food. Appetizing at all.
Filipino food.
Oh, and I just had some of that recently at our new Filipino restaurant in town. Shout out to them. I also saw just a big party happening over there one night. I think I peered in as I drove by.
Ooh.
And I saw Haniel with a guitar.
Oh, right.
And I was like, if Haniel wasn't there, I'd go say hello. But
Saturday evenings, I think
that sounds right.
They have
pretty cool.
They have music nights or something like that. So
the the best news was my son is like the opposite of every child on the planet with food, especially the opposite of me. He's the least picky eater ever.
Wow.
And we went there, I don't know, like last week sometime. And he had the chicken pancit, I think.
Pancit, yes.
And then there's another word that comes after that, but I never go that far because I'm like, they know what I'm talking about at this point. He had that, ate it with all the vegetables in there. He ate all of it.
Wow.
And then he ate some of my dumplings. He ate some of whatever Joanna had. I can't remember what she got. Like, he just wanted everything.
That's cool.
He's a very good eater. And then I had a burrito the other day full of vegetables. He ate that and then made me go get burritos for lunch today. I obviously didn't want why would I want a burrito?
Right.
I'm very proud of him.
He's
a very
Gabriel
good eater.
Like that.
Maybe he just needs to hang out with Leighton a little bit. Although, to clarify, I get to take no credit because my daughter is the single pickiest eater I've ever met in my entire life. There's like 3 food items on earth that she will eat. So it's nothing.
That sounds
magical.
more like our Gabriel too.
Is it?
Yeah.
I think we were more intentional with Leighton. He was our first, and like when he was really little, like we were, made sure to have him eating like a bunch of different vegetables and different things. And then Matilda came along and we were already just beat down from having another child, and we're like, you just eat whatever you want to eat. I don't know, we'll figure it out. Just stop screaming at us. So now she'll eat chicken nuggets.
There we go.
Fries and fruit snacks. That's pretty much
Okay.
the only thing we can get her to eat without a fight. Would that be Gabriel? Is that
something like that? But
Yeah.
it's a different thing for him. He likes the butterfly shrimp.
Ooh.
Yep, the one that we get from Walmart.
Okay.
He will eat chicken nuggets, but he will not eat the chicken.
Just the breading?
Just the breadings.
Oh no.
I know, right? And then like his favorite thing right now is sushi rice, is what he calls it. It's like those seaweed, the nori sheets, and then he'll put hot rice, and it has to be hot.
Yeah.
If it's not like steaming hot, he's not gonna eat it. He'll put rice in it, and then he'll put it in his mouth, and that's what he eats. So that's his favorite thing right now. Or corn dogs too.
Oh,
that's it.
There you go. There's a good American food in there, and a corn dog.
And the corn dog.
Oh man. Well, even though we're only covering 4 verses today, we probably should jump in.
Why?
Because there's a lot in these 4 verses.
Okay. All right.
Plus, you're long-winded. So
Yes, I tend to be.
You get riled up when you're talking about the Bible. Apparently, it's important to you.
What?
I know, which is a good thing to clarify.
That is so true.
Ignore my tone.
Yeah.
But so we're finishing up Romans 9. This is only the second time we've taken 3 weeks to get through one of the chapters. We did that with Romans 8. Now we're doing it with Romans 9. We're finishing up with verses 30 through 33. So like you usually do, Pastor Leo, if you could give us just a bit of a recap, a kind of summary, what should we be walking away from these verses?
Speaking of long-winded.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Okay.
Should I get my phone back out and just peruse the internet while you talk?
Yep. You can reply to the comments.
Yeah. Live. Leo's still talking.
So, okay. So it's not just for today, but for the past 3 weeks that we have been talking about chapter 9. The bottom line of all of this is our salvation was an act of God's mercy. And if that's the case, then that should humble, comfort, and encourage us to share Jesus with others. That's the whole point of chapter. It's not just 30 to 33, but the entire chapter.
Yeah.
Because think about this, and I'll use a couple of analogies here. What do you do when you get great news? Like you buy a car, or you purchase a house, or you get drafted by the NBA, or something like that.
In 2 of those scenarios, I just lost a lot lot of money, and then one of them I just gained a lot of money. So my response might be different.
Right. No, but you share it to the world.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. You're proud to say that you purchased a car, or you purchased a house, or you got drafted by the NBA, or something like that. But whatever great news you have,
a social media post is probably happening.
Social media post is what we get, right? So you spread the word. You let people know, especially those that are important.
I can see where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
following along.
Right. So, so that's if that's the case, then we spread the word. And what's the best news in the world? Then our salvation, right?
Jesus,
Jesus,
my Sunday school answer.
Mhm.
And you
From
can
the
mock,
Bible.
you can mock Jesus as a Sunday school answer, but it's always the right answer.
is.
Good luck telling a kid that it's the wrong answer when they say Jesus.
That is so true, right? So, okay, here's a second one. How would you feel when you were on a ship that sank and you've been floating on a
Terrible.
door in a cold night and your boyfriend just sank to the bottom of
Right,
the ocean
because you weren't willing to scoot over a little bit and create enough space for him.
There was enough space on that door for you.
That's not what this podcast is about, Leo.
No, I'm sorry. Okay, all right.
Side note, though, did you ever watch the show Mythbusters?
Oh yeah, that's how I know.
Yeah, they did an episode where they proved both of them could have floated on that door. All right, please continue.
Anyway, okay, so how would you feel? You've been
Cold.
floating on that. Yep,
I'm cold in
You've
this
been
scenario.
cold, and then you have just been rescued.
Oh,
you're now
that's
sitting
better.
on the deck of the ship with a warm blanket around you, sipping hot coffee.
Well, I don't really like coffee, so I wouldn't feel very good.
Well, hot cocoa.
Oh, now I feel great.
There we go, right?
Yeah.
So you feel great. You feel comforted.
Safe.
You feel secure.
Yeah.
You feel
Yeah.
safe, right? And that's the thing. And we talked about this just now. Our salvation is the best answer. So it should, number one, humble us. It should humble us because it was graced to us. Remember, we talked about this a few episodes back. It's graced. It's been graced to us. We did nothing to earn it. We did nothing so we deserve it. It's been graced to us. So it should humble us. Number two, it should comfort us in the same way that sitting on the deck of a rescue vessel ought to make us feel. Because we've just been rescued not just from death, but from eternal damnation. If you've been rescued from death, floating on a door, and it makes you feel comforted, what more should being saved from eternal damnation make us feel, right? And if getting drafted by the NBA is great news and we want the world to know, then Jesus from the
Nailed
Bible is the great news and the greatest news in the world. So that should make us want the world to know.
Yeah.
So
Let's jump into these verses. Verse 30. Again, I always, whenever I do read things here, I'm always reading out of the ESV. You can be reading it out of whatever you want to be reading it out of, as long as it's the Bible.
yes,
Don't read it out of like a Harry Potter book. I'm in chapter 9 and I can't find what you're talking about.
or one of the paraphrases.
Well, Pastor Mike always really liked one of the he liked the Message paraphrase every once in a while.
Oh, he does?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he would use it every once in a while.
Right,
I think my
yeah,
dad
that's
used it every
cool.
once.
Well, not the not so good ones.
Yeah. Anyway, chapter 9, verse 30. There's a whole bunch of them out there. If you're worried, am I reading a translation that is bad? Just come find Leo and throw it at him, and then ask him if it's good or not. Does that work?
That works.
Okay. Later
Or find
today,
David.
No, don't do that. Later today, I'm going to throw my Bible at Leo and ask him if it's an acceptable translation.
No, don't do that.
But so verse 30, it starts with, so normally, and you've talked about this before, we've talked about it a bunch on the Grow podcast, when he wants to kind of wrap things up, or at least when he basically is like, based on all of that stuff, he usually throws out a therefore. This one, he doesn't throw out a therefore. He starts it with a, what shall we say then? Which, again, he's really liking asking himself questions in this book.
Right.
But this is kind of him just wrapping up everything he's saying. So when he says, what shall we say then, what is the then he's referring to? What is he wrapping up? What is he summarizing?
I think the way I see it, the difference between his therefore and the what shall we say is therefore is just him wrapping it all up. What shall we say? When he says, what shall we say? Since there's a we in there, I think he's reeling us in to make, to not just agree, but think about how he's wrapping it up and everything that he just said, and he's involving us in the conversation.
Yeah, making it personal for us.
Right.
Okay.
So Paul is wrapping up more or less everything that we have been discussing in chapter 9. So several important points we need to review. If you want a more in-depth discussion on this, please go back to the past 2 episodes. because we talk about this.
120
in
and
depth.
121.
Right.
Yep.
So it was God's sovereign will to extend grace to us non-Jews. Again, we did nothing to deserve it. We did nothing to earn it. It has been grace to us. And it was God's sovereign will to offer that grace to us. That's the first point. Second point, we, the non-Jews, we were able to be in a right standing before God. Again, we talked about this before, also known as righteousness. We got righteousness, or we were able to attain righteous standing before God, not because we were more law-abiding than the Jewish people, or we were more law-abiding than anyone else. It was not because we have a special prayer that they don't have. It was not because we went to a certain church or claim allegiance to a certain religious organization. It's not because we follow the teachings of so-and-so prophet, priest, or pastor. We did not pursue, which implies work, righteousness. We did not pursue righteousness. We did not obtain it. We attained it. It was graced to us. So the question now is how? The answer in verse 30 is by faith. By faith. So the non-believing Jews, this is the third point, the non-believing Jews, on the other hand, did not attain right standing despite all of the works that they were doing. So they pursued something that they should not have been pursuing at all. They pursued the law of righteousness, and we talked about this too in the previous episodes, when they should have been pursuing the lawgiver. There's a difference. They pursued the law instead of pursuing the lawgiver. That's in verse 31. So in verse 32, Paul says that instead of pursuing righteousness only by their law-abiding works, something uber-religious people still do today, sadly.
Is that religious people who drive like a taxi service, or uber religious people? See that, Leo?
Yeah,
Did you get
yeah.
it? Did you get it, Leo?
I got it. I got the lift of it.
Whoa!
Well,
Nailed it.
So it's so.
Everyone just turned the podcast off. Come back. We're done. We're good.
Right.
We're back.
I'm so
Jumping back
sorry. Like rabbit trails. So your dad's gonna comment.
in. Yeah. We know, Dad. Okay. He doesn't even have a cell phone. He doesn't know what Uber is. That went right over his head.
Well, there we go. Okay, so we should pursue the lawgiver instead of the law, just the law.
Yeah.
And the Jewish people, Paul is saying that they should have pursued the lawgiver with their hearts instead of just pursuing the law by doing righteous works.
Still happens today in
Right.
a lot of religions, including Christianity, where we get distracted from the lawgiver by focusing on trying to do good works and things.
Yep.
So verse 32 you were just in, which it talks about that, but so then it mentions a stumbling stone, right? It says they have stumbled over the stumbling stone, and you're like, oh yeah, like works are probably the stumbling stone, right? Like they distracted. But then you keep reading, and works is not what's being called the stumbling stone.
No,
So
it's not.
He does the as it is written as he goes to quote, and behold, I am laying in Zion a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, and whoever believes in him will not be put to shame. And so he's talking about Jesus.
Yes.
So first of all, why are we calling Jesus the stumbling stone? This is very confusing, especially in a religious context. When we talk about a stumbling stone, usually it's something that is getting in your way from following Jesus.
That's
right.
right.
Like, the video games are really a stumbling stone for my kid right now. He won't go to youth group, or
That's right.
Or what? There's a million things, but here he calls Jesus a stumbling stone. Talk to us a little bit about that, because it makes sense in what he's talking about. It just the language is a little bit backwards from how we in the modern day we use that, and so it gets a little confusing.
Because he is.
Yeah, definitely.
But let me explain.
Yeah, but please.
Okay, so here's the thing: as long as anyone, and we're not talking about just the Jewish people. It can be Christians, it can be whatever it is, but as long as anyone pursues salvation by works, the grace of Jesus will act as a stumbling stone. Again, as long as anyone pursues salvation by works, the grace of Jesus will act as a stumbling stone. How? Well, okay, before that, this includes everyone who rely on works, including people who rely only on religion or religious obedience or religious practices or religious traditions. And they only abide by it because everybody does it. The same message is true since the beginning of time. God looks at our hearts. We see that in the Old Testament. The same is true today. God looks at our hearts. Jesus is the rock that we stumble and trip on over in our or we trip over in our self-righteousness, because he's the rock of our salvation. He's supposed to be the rock of our salvation. He's supposed to be the rock we build our lives on, not religious practices, not religious laws and traditions and whatever it is. So in Ephesians chapter 2 and verses 8 and 9, it says, "Therefore it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God." And this is the famous part of here, "not by works, so that no one can boast." So that no one can boast. You can't boast about the religious practices and traditions that you follow, because it's not that gives us our salvation. It's Jesus. So Titus 3 and verse 5 also says, "He saved us not because of righteous things we had done, but because of his mercy. He saved us through the washing of rebirth and renewal by the Holy Spirit."
And then, this kind of brings us to the conversation of, because so often in Romans and in a lot of the writings, he's differentiating between non-Jews and Jews.
Yes.
Which for us today isn't like one-to-one applicable, because
Right.
a lot of the times, and we've even been talking about this, like the Jews that Paul is talking about, the Jewish people are that looks much more like maybe somebody who was raised up in the church, right? Like I come from this religious background, especially with what you're talking about right there, right? Like, well, I grew up in the church, like I was baptized as an infant, or I went to confirmation, or I went to church when I was in high school with my parents. So like I'm all good,
Okay.
or I tithe, so I'm good,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. So there's it's kind of different, right? Like we end up in the same location of you have to believe in Jesus, but the two groups kind of got there differently. Is that right?
That's right.
Like for the Jewish people, they had those like rules and practices and things like that. But for the non-Jews, we were completely on the outside.
Yep.
But it wasn't just like, well, now you're all automatically on the inside either. That's
That's
right?
so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. I kind of struggle with saying that it's the opposite, but like that you put it nicely. Like it was a different way for us,
Different route to the
Different
same
route.
final answer
Yep.
of needing Jesus.
Because that is so true.
Yeah.
And that's why Jesus becomes the stumbling block, because unless you really allow your heart and your mind to reach that point where it's only Jesus, it's only about Jesus, then he becomes the stumbling block, because you keep putting another thing after him, which shouldn't be the case. But anyway, the Jewish people, even those who did not and do not believe in the saving grace of Jesus, they believe that they are all worthy of the kingdom of God because of their Jewishness.
Sure. Which is kind of like what I was saying, like both for the Jewish people and then for a lot of people who grow up in a quote unquote Christian home these days. You're like,
Right.
well, my parents are Christian, so
Right.
so I'm good. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Like
safe.
there are people who even say like, I'm a third generation so
Sure,
and so, or
yeah.
I'm a 10th generation
Yeah.
so and so. So yeah, they believe that it's because of their it's their inheritance, sort of like
Sure.
when they speak like that, it's like it's my inheritance because I'm a third generation, or I'm a 10th generation, or I'm this or I'm that. It's not because of that, but because they did not and do not believe in Jesus. Even today, sadly, I've seen interviews where they say, I don't believe in Jesus. So they are not in a right standing before God. So in the same way, non-Jewish people, that's us, who did not and do not pursue the grace of Jesus are also not in right standing before God. So we still come like that, and that's what we were talking about just now. We still come to the same conclusion. Only those who believe in Jesus were, are, and will always be justified in the eyes of God. So what Jesus said is true when he said, no one comes to the Father except through me.
Yeah.
So,
and the we're not going to start a deep dive on the book of Isaiah right now, but all of it was foretold. The prophet Isaiah prophesied about it. You can go read Isaiah 8:14. You can read Isaiah 28:16. Obviously, there's a lot of prophecies that mention Jesus. It's not just two, but go read those. But this is all why
those are two important ones.
Yeah, and this is why we're doing an episode just on 4 verses. Like there's, not only is there a lot in here, but it's very important. I was thinking too while you're going through that last part real quick before you kind of summarize for us here. It's funny, the misconception that blood is what saves me.
Oh.
But my blood instead of Jesus'
blood,
kind of blood, right? Like it's like my blood has nothing to do with it.
Right.
It has, my DNA, my background, my ancestors are irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because as you said when you're quoting Jesus, like no one comes to the Father except through him. So it doesn't matter that my dad is a missionary and a pastor and my mom is this incredible woman of God. It doesn't matter. Like those are great benefits that I had as a kid, right? Like it was easier for me to get to know him because I had parents who knew him, but their faith does not save me.
That's so true.
My blood doesn't save me, but it is blood that saves us. It's just, it was Jesus' blood.
Yep.
And I've never really thought about it in the context of blood that way before. When you're talking about the misunderstanding of how I'm saved, and the confusion that we get in even still today of, like, well, my parents were Lutheran. I was baptized as a kid. I go back on Christmas, or my grandma's this incredible evangelical Christian, and she still prays for me, so I'm good. But we forget that it's not our blood that saves us; it's Jesus' blood. Yeah. So anyway, Leah, why don't you summarize this for us? Because again, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. And then you didn't give us any head change, heart change, or life change the last 2 episodes.
Now we do.
I'm sure everyone's been furious about it, so now we've got them here. So give us a little summary, and then let's get to those.
All right. Okay. So
and then give me your jacket. I haven't stopped yet. If I got it, just a heads up. Episode 123, I will be wearing it at the start of the episode. All right, please continue.
Okay. So the summary, or this summary, is not just for this episode, but
the whole
for
chapter.
The whole chapter,
sure, okay.
Like including the 2 before. The mercy of God is a glorious thing. It is a glorious thing. It is a wonderful thing. But if we're honest, it can be upsetting to know that none of us are entitled to it. Like, especially for the people who have been relying on their blood. We've been talking about blood in this episode.
It's become a dark episode. We're talking a lot about blood.
I think for the next one, I should bring the dish that we have. It's made of blood.
Is it like a blood sausage or something like that?
I'm
Scandinavian,
not just the sausage,
so
it's the whole dish.
Oh, no, we're going to skip. No, you know what? I think we're done with Filipino food on the show. I think.
But anyway, okay. The dinuguan one. Okay, but anyway, okay. So the mercy of God is a glorious thing, but it can be upsetting to know that none of us are entitled to it. That's just the fact of life.
Yeah.
None of us are entitled to it. None of us are destined for it or to it because of whatever inheritance we think we have.
Yeah.
But for those who have been saved by Jesus, the mercy of God is our lifeboat. The grace, the righteousness that have been graced to us, the mercy that God offers us despite the fact that we did nothing to earn it, that is our lifeboat. And because God has shown us mercy, God has rescued us, God has saved us. That's why we say saved. We have been saved. We are now on the lifeboat, and because we are now on the lifeboat, we can be assured that God will keep us and strengthen us for our mission to save His mercy or to share His mercy with others. So let's, and this is my encouragement and Paul's encouragement to all of us. Let's commit ourselves to receive God's mercy with humility and gratitude and share it with those who are not yet on the lifeboat. Remember the letter that we read, about
from
like
the atheist to the theologian.
And that's why he's right. We should be running the streets and telling people about this, because it is the greatest news in the world, right? So they can be rescued as well. Unless, of course, they willingly reject it, which is a different matter altogether. But we need to share it, and
that part's not under our control, right? Like me deciding, am I gonna make sure to share this good news with people, is my choice,
right?
Like if I find the cure to cancer, first of all, I better want to share it with everybody, and Leo has cancer. And I bring it to Leo, and Leo says, no, I don't want that. Well, I can't do anything about that.
Right.
But my job was to share that good news with Leo. And that's the task that Paul's been talking about, that we've been talking about here on this podcast.
That is so true. That is so true. Because all of us, and if we see ourselves as like people who are bobbing on the waves in that cold night, floating on or fighting over a door.
There was room for Jack.
There was room. But then that rescue boat is great news. It's not just, I'll just float here for a bit and then I'll make it on my own. No, we are all doomed unless we get on that lifeboat so we can be called the children of God. Yeah. So
this is where, if we were allowed to put music in on a podcast without violating all sorts of copyright rules, I would insert the song Lifeboat by the band The Elms, which were a really cool Christian band from like the mid 20 odds. Do you know that? Are you familiar?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Leo. We're going to listen to it as soon as we're done recording. It's a great song. Strongly recommend. But that's exactly what that song's talking about. I love it.
You should listen to it. After
you know what we're going to do? We're going to have a link to that song in the YouTube description. But it's a great song, and that's exactly what I was talking about. I was loving that you were using that lifeboat analogy. That caught me off guard. I love it.
Because we've been using the movie.
Yeah, we have, yes.
All throughout the episode. So might as well end with a lifeboat.
We might as well.
But okay. So here's the head change, the heart change, and the life change.
Finally.
Change, right? I'm so sorry it took 3 episodes, but anyway, okay. So, head change is know that in Christ we are recipients of God's mercy. Again, we didn't earn it. We are recipients of God's mercy. Heart change is this one. Feel gratitude. Feel gratitude that God has chosen to be merciful to us. It is His sovereign will. He couldn't, is it possible that he would have just said, you know what, screw it, I just want to reset button. Could have done that, but he didn't. So feel gratitude that God has chosen to be merciful to us. And the life change is share that good news. I mean, come on, if it's the greatest news in the world. Share the good news of God's mercy with those who are not yet followers of Jesus.
Yeah.
Because it's really that important.
Yeah. And you got some questions for us? Please jump in the comments and keep replying to those. That's been really, really awesome to have our community all come together and do that. So go in the comments and leave a comment to one of these questions.
That's right. So here's the first one. What might your life be like now if God hadn't adopted you into His family? Big question.
It's a depressing question.
It's a very depressing question, right? Where would you be if God hadn't adopted you into His family? So there's the second one, and I think this is the one for the
best one for the comments. Yeah.
So, in what ways have you been humbled by God's mercy on you? Because if you haven't been humbled by God's mercy, just think of that lifeboat analogy again. And you would. So, and then here's the third one. Who in your life needs to hear the good news of God's mercy today? Who in your life needs to hear that very great news that we just talked about?
And that's, we might not be putting that one in the comments, but that might be the most, maybe not the most, but it's just as important as all of them to ask, because that's, we talk about New Hope, we talk about go, grow, and give, but go is the first one, because lost people becoming found people is the most important thing that we do. That's why it was the Great Commission. The last thing that Jesus told us to do when he left was go and make disciples, go and tell people the good news about me.
Give that command to pastors or to just evangelists.
Oh, really? I thought it was just you that had to do that. I have to do that too? This is ridiculous.
So
for real, that's for all of us. So let's make sure we do that this week, and then come back next week. We're going to be finally into Romans 10. We're doing verses 1 through 13.
Yep.
So we're gonna we're just doing 2 weeks on Romans
2 weeks
10.
on this one.
I assume.
Right.
From the first 13 verses being one. So Romans 10, 1 through 13, read along with us, then come back. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, or if you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, the majority of you are on YouTube.
Yes.
And then there's a reasonable number of you that are on Apple Podcasts. And then shout out to like the 5 of you that listen on Spotify. You guys are awesome. And at this point, it doesn't take any more work for us to get it onto Spotify. So it's just the initial work of getting in there. But that work was for you, 5 people every week.
Yes.
I don't podcast on Spotify either. So that I've never listened to a podcast on Spotify.
Spotifyers, shout out to you.
I use Spotify for music, but not for podcasts. So just wanted to give some love to the 5 of you, very specifically 5 of you that are on Spotify.
That's awesome.
Make sure you subscribe so you get notified when the new episodes go live. And new episodes go up every single Monday at 6 a.m. Shout out to Carrie Munson and others who often listen at 6 a.m. Which is way too early. I don't want to hear my voice at 6 a.m. I don't know what you guys are doing, but
I'm a morning person, so that's
I'd be okay hearing Leo's voice at 6 a.m. We do love all of you. We're so thankful that you've been going through this study with us. I'm especially thankful that you've kind of been committing to being more active in the comments so that we can continue to grow together. We can be in community together.
We love it.
It's been really, really cool. So let's keep doing that. Thank you, Pastor Leo. Thanks to all of you, and we will see you next time.
Ingat.